Chicago winters unleashed their harsh cold from early morning. Libby Hampton was running a red pen over the manuscript she was editing while gazing at the falling snow from her office window. Entering her 10th year working at a major publishing house, Libby had established herself as a seasoned editor in the children's literature department. "Libby, could you check this new proposal?" Startled by her colleague's voice, she looked up and nodded with a smile. Her habit of becoming deaf to her surroundings when immersed in the world of books remained unchanged. It was a habit that began in childhood. On nights when she could hear her parents arguing, Libby learned to retreat into imaginary worlds, reading book after book by flashlight under her bed covers. That evening, as Libby was on her way home from work, her cell phone rang. "Hello, Nora?" On the other end of the line came her sister Nora's excited voice. "Libby. It's finally set. The date for the baby shower. The second Saturday of next month. Keep your calendar clear." Libby felt her hands tighten on the steering wheel as she managed to produce a cheerful voice. "Of course. I'm looking forward to it." After ending the call, Libby let out a deep sigh. Several months had passed since Nora's pregnancy announcement. While the entire family bubbled with joy, only Libby harbored complicated feelings. Nevertheless, she sincerely wished for her sister's happiness. When Libby returned to her apartment, her husband Michael was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Working as an architect, he was a good cook, and today too, delicious aromas wafted through the air. "I'm home. Welcome back. Pasta tonight." Michael turned around and tilted his head when he saw Libby's expression. "What's wrong?" "I got a call from Nora. She says the date for the baby shower has been set." "I see," Michael said quietly. He placed his hand gently on Libby's shoulder. "Are you okay?" Libby buried her face in Michael's chest. Only he truly understood Libby's real feelings. 3 years ago, shortly after they got married, they had begun hoping for children. However, Libby had experienced 3 miscarriages, and after the last one, doctors told her another pregnancy would be difficult. "I really want to celebrate Nora's happiness. But you don't have to pretend to be cheerful," Michael said gently. "It's okay to have honest feelings." Libby smiled weakly. "Mom always loved us equally. But Dad..." There was no need to elaborate. Thomas Hampton had clearly distinguished between his 2 daughters. Despite Libby being a model student who always tried to meet her father's expectations, Thomas's gaze was always directed at Nora. Her younger sister was bright and sociable, adept at capturing their father's attention. Especially when their mother Carol was working night shifts as a nurse, Nora was the angel who alleviated their father's loneliness. The only one who showed Libby special affection was her grandmother Elizabeth. Bookish and intellectual, her grandmother doted on Libby, who shared the same disposition, and told her various stories. Before she passed away, Elizabeth entrusted Libby with a small wooden box, saying, "I've been saving these for the family's first baby." After dinner, Libby entered the small room adjacent to her bedroom. There, she had collected books and materials about mental health, knowledge she gained through experiencing 3 miscarriages in 3 years. Libby also participated in support groups for women who had similar experiences and was now occasionally asked for advice. She reached for her grandmother's wooden box by the window. Inside were a silver spoon set and a lace baby blanket that Elizabeth had carefully preserved. Libby gently stroked them, wondering if she should now give these items, originally intended for her own child, to Nora's baby. "Nora's baby will bring new joy to our family," she whispered softly. And she made a decision, to prepare the best gift for her sister's baby shower, to overcome her own pain and celebrate wholeheartedly. As the baby shower day approached, Libby's home study gradually filled with gifts. She had spent weeks preparing special presents. Standing before an old wooden bookshelf, she selected several books on mental health during pregnancy. These were books that had supported Libby herself after experiencing miscarriages. "I wonder if this will be helpful," she murmured, picking up the latest guide on birth preparation. She carefully arranged books, organic moisturizing cream gentle for pregnant women, relaxing lavender-scented candles, and handmade maternity tea one by one in a beautiful wicker basket. Libby took out her grandmother Elizabeth's wooden box from the back of the closet and checked the silver spoon set and lace blanket inside. These items, passed down in the Hampton family for over 100 years, were originally meant to be used for the family's first baby. As Libby gazed at them, she remembered her grandmother's gentle voice, "Love grows the more you share it." Or perhaps something more practical would be better. Libby moved to another room and looked at a large box. It contained a luxury stroller. She and Michael had purchased it with part of the money they had saved for fertility treatments. They were beginning to accept that they no longer had the option to continue treatment. "Libby, you haven't forgotten our lunch appointment, have you?" Michael's voice came from downstairs. Libby started and looked at the clock. "Oh. Lunch with Emily." She hurriedly got ready and headed to the cafe where she was meeting her friend Emily. Emily had been Libby's close friend since college and was one of the people who had supported her through difficult times. She was also acquainted with Nora. Finally. Emily waved with a bright smile when she spotted Libby. They ordered salads and iced tea and caught up with each other. Emily happily talked about her recent promotion and getting a new dog. After chatting for a while, the topic eventually turned to Nora's baby shower. "What are you planning to give?" Emily asked. "I've been thinking about a few things," Libby answered. "Items inherited from my grandmother, a mental health care package, and also..." "A mental health care package?" Emily frowned. "Isn't that a bit heavy?" Libby was momentarily at a loss for words. "But I think it's important. Especially during pregnancy and after birth." "Of course it is," Emily hesitated a bit. "By the way, I met Nora last week." "Oh," Libby responded casually. "How was she?" Emily twirled her glass and lowered her gaze. "She seemed fine. It's just..." She paused as if choosing her words. "Nora mentioned that she'd prefer if you didn't bring up your miscarriages at the baby shower." Libby's hand froze. "What?" Emily hastily added, "Nora said it would be awkward, but I don't think she meant any harm. I'm sure she just wants to avoid sad topics at what should be a joyful occasion." A dull pain shot through Libby's chest. What hurt her most was that her experience was considered a sad topic. Still, she managed a smile. "I understand. Don't worry about it." On the way home, Libby tried to hold back tears in the car. To think her sister found her experience embarrassing. Still, she tried to understand. Nora was facing her first childbirth and must be anxious. She could understand the desire not to spoil a joyful occasion. When she got home, Michael was working in the study. Seeing Libby's expression, he stood up. "What happened?" Libby told him what she'd heard from Emily. Anger flashed across Michael's face. How could she say that? "I should call Nora." "Don't," Libby said quietly. "It's my sister's special day. I don't need to cause any waves." That night, as Libby was wrapping a large gift box, she contemplated what to write on the accompanying card. In the end, she wrote a brief message. "We look forward to your baby bringing new joy to our family. With love, Libby and Michael." Michael placed his hand on Libby's shoulder from behind and read the card. "It's a wonderful gift," he said. Libby smiled, but behind that smile lurked complex emotions. She was suppressing her own pain to celebrate her sister's happiness. Yet deep down, there was sadness that her experience was deemed a taboo that shouldn't be mentioned. The night before the baby shower, Libby couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in bed. Michael quietly held her hand, lying beside her without saying a word. He knew that sometimes, just being there was the greatest comfort. The next morning, Libby got up early to prepare. While fixing her hair in front of the mirror, she reminded herself, "Smile today. This is Nora's day." Michael couldn't attend due to a business trip, but he saw Libby off at the door. "Tell Nora it's a gift from both of us," he said, kissing Libby. Libby loaded the large gift box and her grandmother's old wooden box into the car. Taking a deep breath, she set off for the event venue. The event space, bathed in gentle autumn sunlight, was decorated with pastel pink and light blue balloons. Libby parked her car and checked her appearance in the rearview mirror. She took several deep breaths to compose herself. Then, she carefully took out the large gift box and cradled her grandmother's wooden box, heading toward the building. "It's going to be fine. Just keep smiling," Libby reminded herself. When she opened the door, several guests had already arrived. At the entrance to the venue stood a cute sign reading, "Nora's baby shower," with a gift reception table beside it. Women formed a line, holding colorfully wrapped presents. Libby joined the end of the line and observed her surroundings. Ultrasound photos adorned the walls, and there was even a corner for a game to guess the baby's gender. Women's laughter and cheers filled the room, creating a celebratory atmosphere. As the line gradually moved forward, Libby adjusted her grip on her gifts, the heavy stroller box and her grandmother's small box. She tried to shake off last night's anxiety. Today was Nora's special day. She wanted to set aside her own feelings and focus purely on celebrating. "Libby." Turning around, she saw her mother Carol approaching with a smile. "I'm glad you came. What a lovely dress." Libby smiled back. "Thank you, Mom. It's a beautiful venue." Carol placed her hand on Libby's arm. In her eyes floated a shade of understanding that couldn't be put into words. "Are you okay?" her mother asked quietly. Libby nodded. "Of course. It's my sister's baby shower. I'm happy." Carol gave her daughter a light kiss on the cheek. "Nora will be happy you came. You've prepared a special gift, haven't you?" "Yes. I've brought grandmother's things too." Carol's eyes moistened. "Mother would be pleased." She gently stroked Libby's shoulder before leaving to attend to other guests. Libby turned her attention back to the line. When Libby finally reached the reception table, she couldn't believe her eyes. On the table was a small frame with a note that read, "This is a joyful event. For the consideration of other guests, those who have experienced miscarriage are kindly asked to refrain from attending." Libby was speechless, frozen in place. The blood drained from her face, and she felt unsteady on her feet. She immediately knew this message was directed at her. Who would put up such a sign? Surely not her sister. "You must be Nora's sister." The young woman at the reception addressed Libby. Her expression clearly showed confusion. "Yes," Libby answered in a hoarse voice. "This sign?" The receptionist lowered her gaze and said in a low voice, "It's Nora's instruction. She specifically mentioned it." Libby's body began to tremble. She felt as if the room temperature had suddenly dropped. Her mind went blank and her ears started ringing. The gifts she had carefully prepared now felt like a burden. The receptionist continued anxiously. "Shall I take your presents?" Libby couldn't respond. Various thoughts were swirling in her head. Nora's words echoed repeatedly, talk of miscarriage would be awkward at the baby shower. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she desperately held them back. Libby slowly placed the expensive stroller box on the floor. Then she quietly placed her grandmother's small box next to it. "Libby, you came too." A cheerful voice came from behind. Libby turned to see her sister Nora, cradling her large belly, happily approaching. However, Nora's smile froze the moment she saw Libby's expression. "What's wrong?" Nora asked. Libby pointed to the reception table. Nora's gaze moved to the frame on the table, and her complexion changed. She tried to say something, but Libby had already turned away. "Libby, wait. That's..." But she wasn't in the mood to hear explanations. Libby slipped through the crowd, trying to leave the venue as inconspicuously as possible. She thought she heard her mother calling from behind, but she didn't stop. When she reached the parking lot, the tears finally flowed. Upon reaching her car, Libby rested her forehead on the steering wheel and cried, suppressing her voice. The sadness and anger she had been holding back for so long came rushing all at once. Libby was deeply hurt that her experience was not only considered a taboo that shouldn't be mentioned, but also an uncomfortable presence that should be considered. Her experience of miscarriage wasn't just an awkward topic, it was part of her life. It was an experience through which she had suffered, learned, and grown. After a while, Libby wiped away her tears and checked her cell phone. Several messages had already arrived. From Nora, Libby, please. Come back. That was a misunderstanding. From her mother too, where are you? I'm worried. Without replying, Libby started the engine. She wanted to be alone now. She wanted to leave without anyone noticing. She drove out of the parking lot and onto the highway. She hadn't decided on a destination, but she just wanted to get away from that place. While driving, she called Michael. Hello, Libby? How was it? The moment she heard his voice, tears welled up again. Michael, it was terrible, Libby said, trying to suppress her sobs. Nora. What happened? Michael's voice was filled with concern. Libby told him about the sign. She could hear Michael gasping on the other end of the phone. I can't believe it. He finally said. Where are you now? In the car, going home. I'm heading back now. I'm going to the airport. But your work. This is more important, Michael said firmly. I'll be home in an hour, so drive carefully. I love you. I love you too. After hanging up, Libby gripped the steering wheel tightly. The pain was still pulsating in her chest, but there was also gratitude. Michael was there for her. He was always on her side. Libby turned her gaze to the scenery around her. The autumn trees were beginning to turn red and yellow. Seasons change inevitably. Perhaps her life would change too, starting from today. But for now, she just wanted to go home. She wanted to be in a safe place to think about what to do next. Libby took a deep breath and faced forward. Even carrying this sadness, she had to move forward. That was her way of living. No matter how many times she stumbled, she would get back up again. The car continued to drive quietly on the highway. Libby's cell phone vibrated several times, but she ignored it. It was late afternoon when Libby arrived home. Opening the front door and entering the quiet house, she finally felt the relief of returning to a safe place. But at the same time, pain was pulsating deep in her chest. Placing her keys on the kitchen counter, Libby sank into the sofa. The quietness of the room comforted her. She silenced her phone, kicked off her shoes, and curled up, hugging her knees. I felt sick. She decided to say when Michael asked later. It wasn't a lie. Her heart ached, and her body felt heavy. After a while, exhausted, Libby closed her eyes. Perhaps because the tension had been released, she quickly fell asleep. When she woke up, it was already dark outside. Michael was sitting next to Libby, gently stroking her hair. When did you get back? Libby asked in a hoarse voice. About 30 minutes ago, Michael smiled. I didn't want to wake you, so I just let you sleep. Libby sat up and nestled into Michael's arms. He didn't ask any questions, just held her. You must be hungry, Michael said. Shall I make something? Libby nodded. Thank you. While Michael was preparing a simple dinner in the kitchen, Libby checked her cell phone. Looking at the screen, she gasped. There were 38 missed calls from Nora. There were also several missed calls from her father Thomas, with a message saying, Libby, why did you ruin the party? You should apologize to Nora. There were also a few concerned messages from her mother. Libby's hand trembled. She felt angry at being accused of ruining the party. Is something wrong? Michael asked as he brought sandwiches and soup. Libby showed him the phone screen. Anger flashed across Michael's face. You've got to be kidding, he pursed his lips. Why should you apologize? Cradling the soup bowl in both hands, Libby finally detailed what had happened today, the sign at the reception table, the receptionist's words, how embarrassed and hurt she felt. Michael was furious. I'm calling Nora right now. Don't, Libby grabbed his arm. It won't solve anything now. Let's think about it tomorrow when we're calmer. Just as they finished their meal, the doorbell rang. Libby and Michael exchanged glances. The clock had already passed 9 p.m. When Michael opened the door, Nora was standing there. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her makeup was smeared. Let me see Libby, Nora said in a trembling voice. Michael hesitated for a moment, but seeing Libby standing in the hallway, he widened the door. As soon as Nora entered, she began to cry. Why did you leave? You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Libby stared at her sister in disbelief. I embarrassed you? Disappearing so suddenly. Dad and Mom were worried. Michael looked as if he couldn't contain his anger, but Libby signaled with her eyes for him to stay calm. Nora, Libby said as calmly as possible, I saw the sign at the reception table. Nora's expression changed. From anger to shame. She lowered her gaze. Those who have experienced miscarriage are kindly asked to refrain from attending, Libby said forcefully. Why did you put up such a sign? Nora sat down in a chair. Her large, pregnant belly seemed cruelly unfair to Libby right now. I thought if you came, everyone's mood would drop, Nora said in a small voice. Especially Jessica and Amanda who just got pregnant recently and are anxious. So I'm someone who should be excluded? Libby's voice trembled. That's not it. Nora hurriedly said. It's just, your experience might frighten others. Libby looked at her sister with deeply hurt eyes. Is my experience a taboo that can't even be talked about? Is my miscarriage something so shameful? That's not it. Nora started crying again. It's just, this event is for celebrating joy. But I went there to celebrate your joy, Libby said quietly. Do you know? I had prepared 3 gifts. Nora looked up, crying. The first was a mental health support basket with books and products that helped me cope with my miscarriages. The second was a silver spoon set and lace blanket from grandmother Elizabeth, entrusted to me with the words, for the family's first baby. Libby took a breath before continuing. And the third was a luxury stroller bought with money we had saved for fertility treatments. Nora was speechless. Surprise and shame appeared in her eyes. Libby. But more important than the presents was wanting you to understand my feelings as your sister, Libby said with tears in her eyes but in a firm voice. You didn't even try to understand my pain. Nora covered her face with trembling hands. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Michael placed his hand on Libby's shoulder. His presence gave her strength. Why are you always like this? Libby poured out feelings she had bottled up for years. Since we were little, Dad always gave you special treatment. I was always second. Still, I loved you. I celebrated your successes. But you treated my pain as something shameful, something to be hidden. Nora was crying, making herself small. I just wanted a perfect day. Perfect. Libby let out a laugh. There's no such thing as perfect in life. My miscarriages, your pregnancy, they're all part of life. Joy and sorrow, we live embracing it all. Silence filled the room. After a while, Nora slowly raised her face. Libby, I'm truly sorry. I didn't consider your feelings. I was only thinking about myself. Libby gazed at her sister. The anger was still there, but strangely, she felt the burden on her heart lighten a bit. Perhaps because she had finally expressed her true feelings that she couldn't say for years. I'm going home, Nora stood up. But, your gifts? I left them at the reception, Libby said. Nora nodded sadly. I'll receive them. Thank you. She headed for the door and turned back. May I contact you again? Libby didn't answer. Michael saw Nora to the entrance. After hearing the door close, Libby finally felt the tension release. Michael returned and embraced her. You spoke well, he kissed Libby's hair. I'm proud of you. Libby buried her face in her husband's chest. I wonder if I did the right thing. You were honest. That's the most important thing. That night, Libby slept peacefully for the first time in a long while. She didn't know what would change tomorrow, but at least she had been able to honestly convey her feelings. It was a small but important step. The next morning, when Libby woke up, there was a message from her father Thomas. I heard from Nora. We need to talk. Libby sighed. A conversation with her father wouldn't be easy. But now, she had the courage to express her true feelings in her own words. 3 months had passed since Nora gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Libby sat at her office desk, opening a florist's website. She was selecting a bouquet to send to her sister. She decided on a simple bouquet of white roses and baby's breath with a card that simply read, "Congratulations." She didn't go to the hospital. Since the baby shower, the sisters' relationship was on the path to recovery, but it hadn't completely healed yet. The relationship with her father Thomas was similar. He had completely taken Nora's side and blamed Libby for ruining the family's joyous occasion. However, Mother Carol stood between her two daughters as always, trying to bridge the gap. Beautiful flowers. Michael called from behind her. He placed his hand on Libby's shoulder and peered at the screen. Nora will be pleased. Libby nodded quietly. I wonder how the baby is doing. Mom says she's doing well, Michael said. They named her Elizabeth. After your grandmother. Tears welled up in Libby's eyes. Choosing the grandmother's name might be Nora's way of reconciliation. 2 weeks later, Mother Carol called. Libby, I'm worried, her mother's voice was tired. Nora seems to be showing symptoms of postpartum depression. She's overwhelmed with caring for the baby. Her husband is busy and can't help much. Libby gripped the phone. Is there anything I can do to help? Actually. Carol paused as if choosing her words. I suggested she ask you for help, but she says her pride won't allow it. Despite her complex feelings, Libby answered, I understand. That night, Libby's cell phone rang. It was 2 a.m. It was from Nora. Hello? Libby answered, shaking off sleepiness. From the other end of the phone came the sound of a baby crying and Nora sobbing. Libby, help me. Elizabeth has been crying for hours. I don't know what to do. Libby got up immediately. I'm coming now. 30 minutes later, Libby arrived at Nora's apartment. Nora, who opened the door, was exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and disheveled hair. In her arms was a screaming little baby. Without saying anything, Libby extended her arms. Nora handed over the baby without hesitation. Libby gently lifted little Elizabeth and began to rock her softly. The knowledge she had gained from years of reading about childcare naturally manifested. It's okay, little angel, she whispered. Remarkably, the baby gradually reduced her crying and eventually began to calm down. Nora watched with a surprised expression. How did you? I just read a lot of books, Libby smiled. I love my niece too. Nora apologized with tears in her eyes. During the long night, the two began to open their hearts little by little. That was the first step toward repair. Over time, their relationship gradually mended. Libby developed a deep bond with Elizabeth, and Nora began to understand her sister's pain. At a family weekend gathering, Nora expressed words of gratitude to Libby in front of everyone. My sister taught me what true family means, Nora said. Sharing both pain and joy. That's what love is. Even Father Thomas began to recognize Libby's strength and kindness for the first time. Especially when he first held Elizabeth, seeing Libby naturally teaching how to handle the baby, a new respect for his daughter bloomed. The shape of the family changed. But Libby felt that the wisdom she gained through her pain was blossoming in a new form. Her relationship with her sister became different from before, but it was rooted in something more truthful. Sometimes by losing something, you find something new. Libby whispered softly while holding Elizabeth. The baby gripped her finger tightly and smiled as if she understood.